The movie starts in a state of hurry. Our protagonist arrives late to his job at a furniture store. His boss criticizes him for it. On top of that, for the short time that he's been there, Malik has been slacking. The result is that he gets fired. Then we see him at home, talking on the phone. He wants to know if any of his paintings were sold that were on display. The man is a painter whose paintings are visible throughout his room. We can see that he is quite talented in art. Soon enough, Malik informs his friend, Carson, that he got fired. He asks him if he can pay rent the next month. Carson, who appears to be a laid-back guy, says he can't let him do that. Malik also tells him he wants to switch to painting full-time. That seems to remind Carson about a job Malik could take as a security guard at a museum. Later, he is at the interview. He tells the interviewer, Trisha, that he is a painter. Upon hearing that, she becomes slightly amazed. They talk for a short time about what it's like to be a painter. By doing so, he makes a good impression on her, and she gives him the job. After that, she starts giving him a tour of the place. As she does, Trisha tells him a story about a painter who wrote a certain statement on his painting with his blood. That story was all over the news. The exciting happening is that Trisha managed to get that painting into this museum. After telling Malik that, she gives him the key. She also tells him the building is over 200 years old. Due to that, it can make some noises at night. On the first night of the job, Malik watches a video of how an artist makes a lot of money by selling his artwork. Once that is done, the guard starts making his checks. It doesn't take long for him to start hearing sounds coming from above. He asks who is up there, before entering the room with the special painting that Trisha talked about. We see it is currently being held inside a container. Malik picks up a screwdriver he notices on the floor. When he does, he hears knocking coming from the container. That prompts him to knock on it. By doing so, he hears his name being whispered from within the container. Such an unprecedented occurrence scares him. After it starts shaking, Malik uses the screwdriver to open it. He sits to look at it, but we do not see the painting. It is uncertain how long he sits, yet he continues to do so even when morning comes. Something in that painting has captivated him. To interrupt him from his viewing, his alarm has to go off. Hearing Trisha enter the house allows him to return to his senses. So he urgently gets to work, screwing the covering back on. As he finishes, he goes to open the door for Trisha. However, we observe that one screw is still on the floor. He quickly goes home to energize himself with sleep. The man that Trisha entered with makes note of the screw on the floor, but it's not enough for them to suspect anything from Malik. While he sleeps at home, we see he was crying as he was observing the painting. It was also whispering to him. We do not understand yet exactly what went on, though we know the painting had some menacing power over him. Then Malik arrives for his second night of work. He sees the blood painting is now on display, and he takes a picture of it with his phone. Later, he sits redrawing it from his phone. Soon he notices something bizarre. The painting has lost its blood. He goes into another room, where he finds a paper of that painting he was redrawing. The word plagiarist surrounds it multiple times. Now it has become even more bizarre. When he returns to the painting, he finds it has regained its blood. Along with that, his redrawing of it is missing the plagiarist accusations. Malik now finds himself in an inexplicable situation. What happened on his second shift? And why did it happen? He also knows he cannot share this happening with anyone, so he has to figure it out alone. Once he comes back home, he witnesses several of those blood paintings in the garage. It turns out to be a hallucination. Also, it seems to inspire him to paint. On his next shift, Malik shows Trisha his artwork, just as she is getting ready to leave. She likes it enough to offer him the opportunity to put it on display. He tells her he would be honored to do that. Before they make it official, she wants to know its name. Malik tells her it's plagiarist, which is a name she likes. After he is left alone, he places his painting on the wall. Satisfied with how things are unfolding, he turns from it for a moment to then see it is missing. In its place, the word amateur is written. He also observes the blood is missing from the famous painting again. This causes him to enter another room, where he sees ripped papers on the floor. More start falling his way from above. He panics and goes up there to discover his painting lying there in over 24 pieces. Malik frenetically starts placing them inside his pockets. While he does, he hears a ghostly sound. Someone stands behind him with a claw for a hand. He runs away to hide in another room. He says he's going to call the police, but the voice just tells him they spoke last night in a dream. They are now connected, is what it adds. Malik wants to know what it wants from him. It wants the man to reach his full potential. After those words, he comes back to the main room to see the blood has returned to the painting. His painting is now also there, hanging undamaged. So what does that make of the papers in his pockets? He takes them out to see that they are just blanks. At that point, Malik cannot believe what is going on. And there has been so much of it already. At home, he paints again. As he does, he remembers how the voice told him that they are connected. Then the word amateur appears over his work. He gets upset, bringing the painting down. In his sleep, he has a dream where the voice tells him to not be afraid. Malik watches an interview with Fiona Walsh on his following work shift. We see the mysterious figure standing behind him on the stairs. He thinks he heard it, so Malik goes up to check. Up there, he sees a table set up, ready for painting. The figure is there behind him. It starts talking to him about his potential again. Malik tells it he wants to be good enough to make a living from it. To such a statement, the figure drops a dagger at him. Malik knows what it wants him to do, calling it insane. But in a louder whisper, The figure says that is what it takes. Shortly after, Malik applies the dagger to his hand. He desires to be a great painter and is willing to spill blood for it. Later, he looks at his completed painting, saying he didn't know he was capable of such work. The voice tells him that he is capable of more. Soon after, he gets a knock on the door from Carson. He does not want to let him in because he came during closed hours. Yet Carson enters anyway to look at the painting. He looks at the blood painting. To experience exactly what Malik did, the blood is missing. We see they are being observed from behind the painting. At that moment, Carson turns into a rather annoying individual by wanting to go upstairs even though Malik tells him not to. He is afraid Carson might encounter the monstrous figure up there, so he pulls him down. This causes Carson to get angry. He tells Malik that his painting is awful before he leaves. In a short time, Malik takes his painting down. On another day, a lady wants to buy the painting Malik put up. However, we see it as a different one. It has a more menacing atmosphere than the one before. Later, Trisha talks to Malik about it. She asks if he replaced his painting, to which he says he did. She also gives him outstanding news, that a man offered to buy it for $3,000. This brings satisfaction to the artist. Working at the museum is helping Malik unlock his potential and bringing him closer to what he wants. He had to suffer momentarily, but the reward seems to outweigh the discomfort. Afterward, he comes to the painting, telling it he wants to learn all that it can teach him. It responds that Malik cannot say anything about what it will unravel for the artist. As he talks to it, he hears a noise coming from above. Going there to search, some individual strikes Malik down. He reveals himself to be Carson. The deceitful man goes to the blood painting to start taking it down. However, Malik does not let him have it, so he strikes him down too. On the floor, the painting starts shaking until the figure emerges from it. It gets on top of Carson, who panics severely. Then it stabs him with the dagger. While it does, Malik calls 911. The voice tells him this is what it takes. Outside the museum, Malik tells an officer what happened. The officer informs him that Carson has a criminal record. During some other time, Malik burns his previous paintings. As he does it, an officer calls him to say Carson will be all right. He also doesn't remember anything that happened. Once the call ends, we see that Malik painted Carson in his wounded state. He comes back to work and finds Trisha there. After taking some days off, he now tells her he's okay to return. Alone again, he comes to the painting, telling it he understood the lesson. Pain is helping him channel into his work. He is also ready for his next lesson. What he wants is to be great. Yet the voice emphasizes that greatness comes from pain. It tells him his next lesson is in the basement. Malik has decided to go through with it. He calls Trisha to explain that he will need a few more days off. After that, he enters the basement, where he discovers a table ready for painting, with the dagger nearby. At this point, we see the situation is becoming like a disease. Malik is blindly walking into something dangerous, risking his health for potential greatness. There, the voice tells him it's time to prove himself. So Malik tries to begin, but he struggles to get inspiration. After some time, he starts hearing laughter, which causes him to throw everything down in frustration. In a short while, he falls asleep. He has a dream that he is stuck in a box. He panics and observes how another guard comes to look at the box. He finds a screwdriver on the floor just like Malik did, which he uses to unscrew the box. Malik panics even more as that takes place. Then he awakens with his inspiration. He goes to the dagger to release his blood and starts painting as if in a trance. His completed painting is of his fearful self. Once he leaves the basement, he forgets to lock it. The artist is very tired, unable to think clearly. He goes home to sleep right away. In a dream, he sees a portrait of himself with the dagger placed inside him. As he removes it, blood pours out. This dream possibly symbolizes how his new method has taken over him. Only through injury can he move forward, and he knows this. A knock on the door wakes him from that nightmare. A man greets him at the front door, telling him he has to pay rent for the house because Carson was renting it from him. Malik is confused by this, thinking the rent was paid. Unfortunately, he does not have the money to pay for it. The man graciously gives him a few days to move out. Following that, Malik talks to Trisha, who now knows that he was in the basement, painting with blood. She is flabbergasted by this, emphasizing to him that they teach children at the museum. But he is doing the best work he has ever done. Regardless of that, Trisha fires him. That causes him to lose control, for he needs to be around the blood painting for inspiration. It taught him how to paint. Yet Trisha tells him that artists who are truly in pain would choose not to have it, despite it being beneficial for their work. Malik, however, tells her she doesn't get it before he leaves. The man comes home with a plan, painting several copies of the blood painting. No longer working there, he comes to the museum as a viewer during the day. He looks at the painting and wants to know what he should do now. Once Trisha finds him there, she tells him it's the last day of the museum. The voice soon tells him that he knows what to do. We see Malik putting on a burglar outfit. He then goes to the museum with one of his repainted works. He manages to sneak in while another guard is outside having a smoke. Malik takes his keys, along with his phone. When the guard enters, he starts looking for them. At that time, Malik opens the basement and knocks on the window to distract the guard. What he ends up doing with that is making the guard enter the basement, so Malik could lock him in there. Afterward, he comes to the painting so the figure could show itself. Since it doesn't, Malik decides to place his hand inside the painting. Miraculously, it goes through. Once it does, someone asks for help. That makes him enter it completely, and it turns out to be another room. In there, he sees many portraits of different people, all painted in blood. Shortly after, a girl calls his name. He sees it as Fiona Walsh, the artist he admires. All of them are artists. Fiona tells Malik he is light years from home while being in that room. At that moment, many of them start saying he has to help them. They all fell for the sinister figure's lies. All of them for greatness. However, in that room, they are neither living nor gone. They are in an endless trapped state. Before he leaves, Malik says he will find a way to free them. So he returns to the room, where the figure brings him painting materials to start painting. But Malik says he has to leave. The figure does not respect his wish, and prevents him from leaving. He gets disturbing images that bring him down. Once it has finished torturing him, it brings him to the canvas, where it tells him it is his final lesson. It also tells him how it studied art's connection to human mortality. As the figure speaks, we observe Fiona losing her life while painting her last artwork. Now it has chosen Malik. After handing him the dagger, he uses it to stab the figure, but it just throws him against the wall. Now we see that he has chosen life over greatness. The man did not give in to his desire to create a work that would outlive him. He wants to fight, to save the artists who could not save themselves. How the fight will resolve is less important than Malik's choice to not fall into the trap. However, as it continues, the figure stabs him in his hand. That causes Malik to retreat into the astral room. The portraits cheer for him there. When the figure appears there too, Malik throws the dagger into the original room and jumps there as well. There, he uses the dagger to stab the painting. It starts bleeding, along with the menacing figure. Soon enough, it becomes destroyed. Following that, the portraits become blank. Malik has freed them, and he has won. The figure will no longer seduce aspiring artists into its trap of greatness. After centuries of doing so, one artist has ended his reign. Malik follows his victory by removing the blood painting. He places his replica instead. Then he unlocks the basement so the other guard can escape. At home, he packs his car with his belongings, while also burning all the blood paintings. He has likely learned his lesson about how to approach being an artist. There are no shortcuts to greatness. If he will get there through diligence and hard work, along with the talent he already has. The final scene has the other guard explaining the situation that took place to Trisha. She looks at the replica of the blood painting lying covered in plastic. We see there is a drop of blood on it.